Cell has always represented something terrifying in the Dragon Ball universe, not just a powerful villain but an idea. The idea that perfection can be engineered, that evolution can be forced, and that science, when pushed beyond morality, can produce monsters no amount of training can prepare for. In Dragon Ball Z, Cell was one of the most calculating, ruthless, and iconic villains the series had ever seen. He wasn't born of rage or revenge, he was born of design, programmed to win, to evolve, to become the perfect fighter. But that legacy didn't die at the Cell games. In Dragon Ball Super Hero, we saw something many fans weren't expecting, a resurrection of that same terror, but this time without the mind, without the finesse, without the restraint. Cell Max wasn't a sequel to Cell, he was a mutation. A chaotic, uncontrollable force built not to conquer but to destroy. Created by the Red Ribbon Army's new generation, Cell Max was meant to be a weapon of absolute devastation. A creature so powerful, so overwhelming, that even the combined forces of the Z fighters would fall before him. And he nearly succeeded. But here's the thing. As of now, Cell Max is gone. Defeated by Beast Gohan in one of the most visually spectacular climaxes in Dragon Ball movie history. His body shattered, his threat neutralized. But this raises a question that's haunted Dragon Ball since its earliest arcs. What if the threat isn't truly over, because Cell's nature has always been regenerative, adaptive, impossible to erase entirely? And if Cell Max was created once, with incomplete data, rushed incubation, and no mental programming, what happens if someone somewhere tries again? What happens if Cell Max 2.0 emerges, not as a raging brute but as a complete being? One with power, control, strategy, and memory. This is how Cell Max could become Dragon Ball's next big threat. To understand that possibility, we need to go back to the foundation of what Cell is. In Dragon Ball Z, Cell was created by Dr. Gero, the scientific genius behind the Red Ribbon Army's android program. Using genetic material from Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Frieza, and King Cold, Cell was grown inside a lab with the goal of becoming the ultimate life form. His ability to regenerate, absorb, and evolve made him one of the most formidable enemies Goku and the others ever faced. But it was his intelligence, his calm, composed analysis of battle that made him truly frightening. He learned, he adapted, he manipulated. Cell Max is a different story. In Super Hero, Dr. Hito, Jiro's grandson, is manipulated by Magenta into creating a new cell. But Hito isn't evil. He has his own sense of ethics, warped as they may be, and he expresses deep reservations about Cell Max. He warns that the project isn't ready, that if activated too early, Cell Max would be unstable, incomplete, but Magenta, desperate for power, triggers the transformation anyway, and what we get is a nightmare. Cell Max is enormous, towering over every other fighter. His power dwarfs even that of Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, androids who could rival Goku and Vegeta in their base or Super Saiyan forms. His regenerative abilities remain intact, and his raw output is beyond anything the Red Ribbon Army has ever produced. But he's not smart, he doesn't speak, he doesn't strategize. He lashes out, destroys everything in his path, and operates on pure instinct. This is key because Cell Max, as terrifying as he was, wasn't finished. He was an incomplete version of what Dr. Hito originally envisioned. The restraints hadn't been installed, the mind hadn't been uploaded, the control protocols weren't set. This wasn't the rebirth of Cell, it was a shell of what he could have been. And that means something very important: the idea of Cell Max isn't over. It's just beginning. Let's think like a Dragon Ball villain for a second. If you're a rogue scientist, a remnant of the Red Ribbon Army, or even someone from Universe 6 or 11 with access to bioengineering, and you saw what Cell Max could do, would you let that blueprint disappear? Or would you try to perfect it? Because the formula is already there. The data has been collected. The battle footage exists. Beast Gohan beat Cell Max, yes, but it took a perfect moment with perfect execution and overwhelming power. That alone would motivate any villain to ask, what if I fixed the flaws? What if I gave Cell Max a mind? Imagine a new version of Cell Max, same monstrous body, same insane power output, but with Cell's original personality. Calm, cold, strategic, capable of speech, manipulation, and tactics. A being who knows not only how to fight, but how to plan. Someone who could study Beast Gohan's technique, predict Goku's Ultra Instinct reactions, and counter Vegeta's Ultra Ego aggression. That version of Cell Max could rival or surpass every threat we've seen so far. Because what made the original Cell terrifying wasn't just that he was strong, it's that he was a mirror. A reflection of the Z fighters' best qualities twisted into something cruel. He used their moves, their forms, their strategies, he was them optimized. Now picture that same formula applied to the entire Dragon Ball Supercast. Cell Max with Ultra Instinct patterns. Cell Max with Frieza's golden durability. Cell Max with Namekian regeneration and Saiyan rage. And now give him a brain. That's the storm waiting on the horizon. Cell Max was introduced to audiences in Dragon Ball Super. Superhero as a brute force monster, overwhelming, chaotic, and uncontrollable. But what makes him far more dangerous than most fans realize is not who he was in that film, but what he could become. If Dragon Ball has taught us anything, it's that no powerful villain ever stays gone forever. Especially not one built in a lab, with schematics and scientific data that can be recovered, rebuilt, and reimagined. To understand how Cell Max could return and become the franchise's next apex threat, we have to look at the science of Dragon Ball, and what it's always said about power, evolution, and adaptation. From the early Red Ribbon androids to Cell's first form to Moro's absorption technique, and even Granula's wish-enhanced power, Dragon Ball has consistently pushed the idea that biology and technology can rival, and sometimes even surpass, divine energy. Let's take a closer look at the biotech progression of villains in the franchise. Dr. Gero, a human scientist, created androids strong enough to overpower Super Saiyan warriors. His androids had infinite energy, adaptive combat systems, and regenerative components. Cell, his masterpiece, was born from genetic engineering that fused together DNA from the most powerful fighters, combining Goku's talent, Vegeta's aggression, Piccolo's regeneration, and Frieza's durability. But even Cell's perfection wasn't his end state. His self-destruction and regeneration triggered a Zenkai-like boost, propelling him into a level that rivaled even Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. Fast forward to Superhero and we see the next generation of this science, Dr. Hito. While eccentric, Hito is perhaps an even greater genius than Gero. His androids Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 possessed battle IQ, personalities, and Kai-based weaponry that could rival trained Saiyans. But Hito's greatest creation and perhaps his greatest mistake was Cell Max. Cell Max was a fusion of old data and new enhancements. He was larger, faster, more durable, and more destructive than the original Cell. But he lacked refinement, he lacked programming, he lacked awareness. Without a mind, he was pure muscle, a wrecking ball with no direction, and that's the point. He was activated too early, against Hito's warnings, and it's that activation that opens the door to his future. Let's imagine a scenario in which someone retrieves Hito's original research. Perhaps the Red Ribbon Army wasn't entirely wiped out. Maybe someone like Commander Carmine escaped with a data core, or maybe a new villain from Earth or even another universe gains access to Hito's work. What happens when that person looks at the blueprints for Cell Max and says, "Let's finish the job"? This is where things start to escalate. The version of Cell Max that Gohan defeated was incomplete. He had no tactics, no reasoning, and no dialogue. He roared like a beast and rampaged until someone put him down, but the next version could be built differently. This time with balance, a fully stabilized Kai core, a neural network based on the original Cell's intelligence, upgraded regenerative systems that adapt to different energy signatures, a body enhanced with the DNA of current era warriors, including Goku, Vegeta, Frieza, Broly, Jiren, and even Gohan himself. If such a being were created, it wouldn't just be a powerhouse, it would be the culmination of Dragon Ball's entire fighting legacy. Think about it, a warrior who has Ultra Instinct encoded into his reflexes, who understands Ultra Ego's power spike mechanics, who can combine God Kai with Namekian healing, who can nullify destructive energy like Hakai and counter it with precision. A being with the adaptability of Moro, the strength of Broly, and the mental edge of the original Cell. Now give that warrior Cell Max's body. You wouldn't just have another villain of the week, you'd have a multiversal level threat. And what makes it even more terrifying is that the heroes aren't ready. Goku and Vegeta are off-world training under Wise and Beerus. Broly is still learning control. Gohan only just tapped into beast mode and Piccolo is mastering Orange. There's no indication that Earth is prepared for a second coming of Cell, especially not one who can think, plan, and counter every move before it happens. But let's go deeper. In the manga, we've seen what happens when a villain copies abilities, like Moro using 7-3 to absorb powers. We've also seen fusion, possession, artificial life forms, and energy manipulation evolve far beyond their original uses. If Cell Max returns with absorption capabilities, he could actively steal and replicate the energy of his enemies. Think about what that means. Every time he fights, he gets stronger. Not by learning, but by integrating. He wouldn't need to train. He would evolve with every punch, every blast, every wound. And now we arrive at the final piece, motivation. Why would this new Cell Max want to fight? The original Cell wanted perfection. He wanted to prove he was the best. But a new version, born in a post-Beast Gohan world, might want revenge. Or better yet, he might want to become the perfect being in all universes. Not just in Universe 7, but across the multiverse. That goal would naturally lead him to challenge Jiren, Kefla, Hit, and other top-tier fighters. And in doing so, he'd threaten the cosmic balance. He'd force Zeno, the Grand Priest, or even the angels to take notice. That's the level of danger Cell Max represents if he's done right. A true final boss. Cell Max, as we saw in Dragon Ball Super, superhero was unleashed before he was ready. But now that the concept exists in the Dragon Ball universe, the genetic architecture, the scientific notes, the battle data, the door is open for a much more refined, far more dangerous version of him to emerge. And that opens up some incredibly exciting possibilities for Dragon Ball's future, whether in the next anime arc, a new movie, or the manga storyline. Let's imagine for a moment that a new Cell Max, complete, strategic, and self-aware, is successfully created. The first question becomes, what's his role? Is he another rampaging monster set on wiping out humanity, or does he serve a higher purpose, perhaps a new kind of antagonist, one who isn't just about destruction but about evolution? Dragon Ball has always featured villains who embody different philosophies. Frieza was tyranny. Cell was perfection through absorption. Buu was chaos incarnate. Zamasu represented divine justice twisted into cruelty. Moro introduced consumption and entropy. Granola and Gas explored trauma and vengeance through external power-ups. A reimagined Cell Max could be the perfect combination of these elements, not just the final product of science, but the embodiment of what happens when nature, technology, and Kai converge into one being. A living god of combat and adaptation. Thematically, this would allow the story to revisit Earth, the original battleground, but with cosmic-level stakes. Unlike Moro, who fed off planets, or Gas, whose strength came from a wish, this Cell Max wouldn't rely on external power sources. His strength would be internalized, always growing, always analyzing, always one step ahead. He'd be the kind of opponent that pushes every hero to the brink and forces them to grow not just in power, but in strategy. From a narrative perspective, Cell Max also offers something that's been missing in recent arcs, a deeply personal threat. The original Cell forced Goku and Gohan into one of the most emotional sagas in the series. Goku's decision to let Gohan take the lead. Gohan's transformation into Super Saiyan 2. The death of Android 16, the father-son Kamehameha. These moments defined the Cell saga. They weren't just fights, they were growth, heartbreak, and legacy unfolding in real time. A return of Cell Max, now intelligent and purposeful, could be Gohan's second arc of reckoning. A true test of whether Beast Gohan is not just powerful but sustainable. Whether he can protect Earth without relying on Goku or Vegeta. Whether he can become the leader that Piccolo and Goku always believed he could be. It would also be a chance to reunite the core cast in a meaningful way. Imagine Goku returning to Earth to find that a new Cell is threatening his son. Vegeta, furious that science is once again challenging Saiyan pride. Piccolo, determined to protect Gohan and Pan at all costs. And even Broly, sensing the emergence of a being strong enough to rival his own chaotic energy. The fight wouldn't be a simple one-on-one. It would be a multi-front war, with each character learning and adapting alongside the enemy. Now let's talk about how the Z fighters would need to respond. Goku would need to go beyond current Ultra Instinct, not just into a new form, but into an integrated state blending instinct with emotion. Vegeta might finally find the balance between rage and divinity, pushing Ultra Ego into something refined. Gohan, still new to Beast, would have to master his transformation in a way that allows him to control its output without losing the emotional edge that activates it. Perhaps even combining it with his mystic training to create a new hybrid form. And here's where the story could take a bold turn. What if Cell Max, learning as he fights, begins to replicate the powers of his opponents? What if he develops a form of pseudo-Ultra Instinct or an altered Ultra Ego? What if after fighting Gohan he unlocks a twisted version of Beast, an apex form driven by corrupted emotion? Suddenly, the Z fighters aren't just battling for victory. They're battling for identity, for control of the future of power itself. This kind of threat would force the entire power scale of Dragon Ball to shift. The gods might get involved not to fight but to observe. Wise could be intrigued. Beerus might finally step in, and even the Grand Priest might take note, not because Cell Max is evil but because he's new, a new kind of being. A fusion of mortal tenacity and divine mechanics. A creation that defies traditional boundaries. And that would set up a final saga unlike any other. One not about destroying universes, but defining what strength truly means. Is it training under angels? Is it rage? Is it science? Is it teamwork? The Z fighters, each representing different philosophies, would be forced to answer that question together. And Cell Max, he would be the catalyst, not just another villain, not just another arc, but a new chapter in Dragon Ball's evolution. A moment where the future is no longer just about who hits harder, but who grows smarter, who fights with heart, and who stands when everything else falls. So yes, Cell Max could absolutely become the next big threat